Thank you so much for meeting with me again today regarding our lesson from the Phantom Toll Booth. And we're going to pick up where we left off last time, and we had identified our gap statement, but let's just go back and review that. One of the things that we had said procedurally that our kids struggled with was not using quotation marks, commas, other forms of punctuation to signify the dialogue that occurs between Milo and the demon of insincerity. So that was that was the procedural gap.
Right.
And then the underlying conceptual struggle that the kids had was to understand that textual nuance is what tells a reader what is conversation between Milo and the demon of insincerity versus maybe what a character is thinking. So those were the things that we had identified as potential areas to reteach and kind of reset with our kids. So looking back at your data, tell me again what percentage of them scored?
Fewer than 50%.
Fewer than 50%. Okay, so knowing that, what do you think would be the appropriate mode of reteaching?
I think modeling would be the appropriate mode, especially since I had less than 50%.
And I agree with you. I think that's a wise decision because there's clearly some more scaffolding and some more instruction that we need to provide because the majority of our kids kind of missed it the first time.
Right.
Okay. So let's take about 5 minutes or so, and let's talk together and plan our reteach. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, all right. Why don't you go to the board and model your reteach of the lesson?
So my thought process, this is something I was really struggling with, so I'm wanting all feedback at this point. So at this point, I was going to start by reminding the students that after I looked at their writing, only less than 50% of us were able to master the writing task. And so I wanted to talk to them about dialogue and them understanding what dialogue is. And so my plan was to say that you all had some great things in your writing. For example, some of you were able to tell me exactly what Milo has learned on his journey. However, it was not written with the conversation between Milo and the demon of insincerity. So let's take another look at dialogue. And so I wanted to be very direct and say dialogue is a conversation between two people. Let's refer back to an anchor chart because I had one up the day that I taught it that talked about the rules, and I had 4 rules that were listed: using quotation marks before and after the speaker's exact words, using a comma to separate the speaker from the quote, put the period, exclamation mark, or question mark inside of the quotation mark, and then start a new line when you are talking about a new speaker.
Right.
Switch speakers. So then I was going to move into us looking at a paragraph that I would write on the board and have them at that point have the dialogue there and just show them. Notice here I have quotations around what she's saying and who's saying it, and move into the next person, and then allow students a chance to work on putting quotations within conversations between 2 different people. Again, I'm not really sure if so.
All right. Okay, here's kind of what my reteach, my model teach would look like if I was going to reteach this. Okay, because our kids struggled so badly. Let's take another shot at this. All right, so looking at the top of page 63, what we see here is a brief line: only a jailer can put you in prison. Offered Milo. Good point, said the judge. Okay, so when we're writing dialogue, there are some things that we need to know to make our dialogue be successful. Okay, so when we're looking at our success criteria, the first thing that we've got to have is quotation marks, because quotation marks tell us that's our signal saying that someone is speaking. So that's the first thing we've always got to start with, are our quotation marks. The next thing that we've got to have is the blend, right? We've got to have a blend, because if you notice here, offered Milo, that connects what he said, and to the next piece, which we'll talk about, is the speaker. There has to be a speaker. So at that first piece of dialogue, we've got offered is the blend, and Milo is the speaker. Then the second piece, said, is the blend, and the judge is the speaker. And then the last thing is, when we are writing dialogue, it's important, the last success criteria is to skip a line. That makes it clear, which is what I did here, that makes it clear to the reader that through the text, the structure of it helps us know I'm moving from one speaker to another speaker, okay? All right, so when you look at this, and we look back at our success criteria, we know we've got to have these 4 things to write successful dialogue. We've got a quotation marks, we've got to have a blend, we've got to have a speaker. Okay, now after watching my reteach, what if anything did you see me do that you could take maybe and add to your reteach?
Definitely the success criteria.
Okay.
I never thought to do it that way, because if they know exactly what we're looking for, they're able to use that. So that helped me greatly, as well as the direct model. Like, you were up there directly teaching exactly every little piece of it. And then breaking the sentence apart, like, I forgot what we call that, but like, watch the steps, advised the policeman.
Yes.
Breaking that down for students and showing them how each part was in there really helped. I would take pretty much a lot of what you just did, to be honest with you.
All right. Okay, so why don't you pick a passage, and why don't you practice your reteach again, maybe pulling that from mine. And I really did like in your model how you were going to use a conversation to do that. I think that using original dialogue is a great strategy, but I think too it's always really important, I just want to stress, to go back to the text.
Which I'm so happy you did that.
Yeah.
Because I never thought to do that.
Yeah, and you don't always have to use the same piece of text, but you could use something else that was maybe of high interest, but I would always make sure that you take them back to the text. But there might be another use of your idea in another way, another setting. So.
I'm happy you brought that up. There was some supplementary text that came with Wit and Wisdom that I can pull as well.
Okay.
For that. But on page 63, I think I would start the same way, with having students open up their books and look in the middle of page 63 where it says, "Keep your chin up," shouted the humbug, and maybe keep your chin up, shouted the humbug, and then going through the success criteria with my students so that they're able to see the quotation marks. Do we have quotation mark there? Yep. Okay. Did we have a blend? Our verb? Yep. Okay. Who's the speaker? Yep. And then maybe what I didn't just do was have a second line so that I can say, oh, we need to make sure that we skip a line when we're going to the next speaker. And then from there, after modeling the situation, giving them a chance to work within the text as well so that they get practice. And then that's my time to walk around and see who is struggling a little bit more and kind of move on from there.
I think that's a great idea, and you could even use some sort of a graphic organizer in groups, and as they have some guided practice, and you can listen to misconceptions as you aggressively monitor around the room. And then you might even need to clarify something, but it would help you be able to assess formatively kind of where your kids are. And I know when we met the first time, you've got a couple of 504 kids and a couple of behavioral kids. So make sure that that you pay close attention to them and their group activity prior to setting them off to do their independent practice.
Okay, I can do that.
Thank you so much.
No. What day will you come for this?
All right, so today is Wednesday, and I know that we talked about not waiting too long until we hit this, because we need to move ahead.
Yeah.
So tell me approximate time frame would be what would work for you.
I can reteach this on Monday.
On Monday, okay, all right. Well, I will be, I think your block starts at 10.
Yes.
So would it be okay? I'll just be there about Monday at 10 o'clock.
That's perfect.
All right, thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Why am I saying